Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order on Wednesday, the 21st, 2023. I'll stand for the
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First on our agenda, 2A, is the DPW Director, an update on Grove Street Bridge.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Board of Selectmen. So take this opportunity to talk about the Grove Street Bridge and update the folks at home. As you know, last week we had a workshop with members of the Board of Selectmen. We had members of the Finance Committee, Economic Development. We had the engineers here, Weston and Sampson, to talk about, as they asked for 25% design, they opened up their communications with the state and DEP to start narrowing down the 100% design of the bridge. And in doing so, it came to light that there are some items that were not anticipated in the design of the bridge, specifically Chapter 91 review. For folks who don't know what Chapter 91 review is, we had to go through it for the Fowler Street Bridge, and we didn't anticipate it there either. So I was rather surprised that that popped up on the Grove Street Bridge. Chapter 91 review basically says if a body of water is navigable, and by navigable they mean you can float a kayak in it at any time during the calendar year, then it's navigable. It triggers a different set of review and permitting requirements that, for the most part, is lengthy. It's the worst part of it. It can add another 6 or 8 months to the review. It also triggers the Army Corps to go from what's called a self-assessment review that we do through our engineering firm, and they certify it to a full-blown review. And the Army Corps has an opportunity to not only comment on the design, but make changes to it. And because they have the ability to make changes, we do Army Corps first, Chapter 91 second, then we can submit for Chapter 85, which is our state permit, basically reviewed by the state bridge team that it meets all of their regulations. And upon completion of that, we can apply for the grant. So what this means really for all of us is that we are not going to be able to apply for this round of grant. We are going to have to wait until the spring for the second round of grants, because the permitting alone that we're going to have to go through now is going to take up all that time to complete. The good news is it's not going to have it'll be a very relatively small impact to the finances of the design. And there's funding already available, so we're not anticipating having to go after any more funding for the completion of these reviews and licenses. But it does add time to the bridge. And I know the folks at home have been watching it closely and following town meeting, and they know that we were under the gun to get this done. And our goal was to get this 100% design submitted by July 1st so we could apply for the grant and go from there. And now it's going to require us to change gears a little bit and shift our time frames. But the bridge itself is going to remain the same focus and the same finances that we anticipate. And that's it. That's my update. If the board has any questions, try to keep it quick.
Questions?
None. Thank you.
None for me. Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Westgate.
You're welcome.
Could we do a little bit of the town manager report until 7:10?
So for the board, I'm just pulling it up. I had emailed out this afternoon town manager's update, and also it is on the. It's also updated on the town's website. So coming in, we're towards the end of June, and one of the main things that we end up working on is making sure that all staff within town hall, DPW, these library complete their annual evaluations. This is part of our personnel procedures, and it involves, especially with positions that report to the town manager's office, reviewing performance after this past year, reviewing goals to set up basically next year's evaluation process. So going through and spending time with each department head or staff person that reports to town manager's office, just to talk about what to accomplish and also make sure something. So that actually ends up being a fairly time-consuming process. In my experience in some towns, sometimes I skip right over that. I know there's a couple of towns that I won't say that I work for that I never had an annual review. So it is nice that Upton has this as part of its culture, part of its process. It doesn't mean that it's a once a year sort of fright show. We have all these gotchas that come out. It really is a year-long process, because if say, and I'll pick on Dennis as an example. Say he said a goal is dependent on getting funding from town meeting. What happens at the town meeting? We could have the best presentation and have everything all our ducks in a row. But if town meeting doesn't approve it, then we go to the evaluation. If we don't evaluate, if we don't update it throughout the years, oh, you did awesome, but you got two that required funding by town meeting, and you know what? They didn't approve it, so sorry, you didn't do that good this year. You always want to revisit things. Things always change through the year, so it really is a conversation. Isn't viewed as every June we end up sort of surprising in a really stressful situation. It really is supposed to really reinforce the work of town and create that team work mentality. So that's one of the main things that we've been working on. The other main thing, which has taken up quite a bit of time within June, is as the board knows, we're redesigning the town's website. We had a lot of trainings over the last 2 weeks. They're 4-hour sessions, going everything over templates, spreadsheets, different components. And because we're a very flat organization, we don't have 1 or 2 webmasters. We have like 4 people that basically are our admins, but each department is responsible for updating their own page. So we need to get everyone together in a virtual room. All these trainings were over Zoom, so they can know how to update it. So it does involve quite a bit of staff time, but those trainings are going to be finishing up Monday with one last 4-hour session. So, and then we'll have basically about 3.5 weeks before go live date for people to get content refreshed. Get it up prior to a July 18th go live date. Doesn't mean it's gonna be all complete, because we have to maintain the existing and then upload the new. So there'll be a couple months where we're just getting information up. If they did transfer the data over, but some of it is a little out of date. We want to refresh it. We want to make it more user friendly. So those are all things that will continue to be a work in progress. Want to give everyone just a brief update about the Route 140 TIP project. Staff most recently attended an online meeting with project engineers and officials to discuss preparation of an amended plan that includes a cross section. This is primarily right here in the center of Upton. Parking on one side, a bike lane on the other, and multi-use path on the side where there would be parking on one side of the road. This is a real balancing act. You have state proponents of bicyclists and use of bicycles saying, this is a state policy trying to get people onto the road. We build facilities, they will come. We're trying to balance it against existing businesses that are really sort of up and go type businesses on both sides of the street, and that we don't want to create a situation where we're creating barriers for bicyclists. So I think at the end of the day, everyone was in agreement that we're trying to come up with more of a unique balancing act. They're going to revise the plans, and that's going to give an opportunity to meet with business owners, our emergency providers in town, as well as boards, to say, here's what we're leaning towards. This is primarily in this area, basically going around the bend. The rest of the project out going out on Main Street. I think it's pretty cut and dry. It's really right here. So that is something that continues to be a work in progress.
Can I
Myself,
interrupt you because it is now 7:10?
sure,
We can come back.
sounds good.
We have a public hearing to set the water and sewer rates, and it is to be at 7:10. Please be advised that the Board of Selectmen, in accordance with general bylaws, Chapter 274, Water, Section 274-12, rates for connection and use of the town's public water supply system. And under said general bylaws, Chapter 223, Sewer, Section 223-4, rates for connection and use of the town's public sewer system. We will hold a public hearing to review the water and sewer rates proposed by the Director of Public Works for fiscal year 2024 on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023 at 7:10 p.m. at Town Hall, room 203, 1 Main Street, Upton, Mass. 01568. Open the meeting. Mr. Westgate,
Good evening.
good evening.
It's that time of year again. We do this every single year. We set the water and sewer rates for the next fiscal year beginning in July. And I have presented the board with a memo, as I do every year, talking about the changes in the budgets that generally are the catalyst requesting increases in our rates. As you know, we have very small user base here in Upton for both our water and our wastewater, and that creates a problem when it comes to setting rates because it's difficult to maintain all of the regulations that we have to maintain and the treatment and the upgrades and the maintenance with only a small base of customers that pass the costs along to. And as a reminder, these are enterprise accounts, so they are designed to be treated as individual businesses where we don't blend with the general ledger. We try to utilize the funds raised from the user rate to finance 100% of the budgets for the water and sewer enterprises. So the good news this year is not much different than last year. As we did our projections and we looked at our retained earnings and we considered our capital, we worked with my assistant in the office, Bill Taylor, and Ty and Bond, who assists us every year in calculating our rate structure. It was originally anticipated that this would be a year that we would have a jump in the water, and it was suggested we may end up as high as 13%. And that is not my recommendation because we did take on a lot of new customers over the last year, and that helped us tremendously. We also have a different philosophy, which we've adopted since I've been here, where we tend to use our retained earnings for our capital, which keeps our borrowing down. And that has a direct effect on the rate. So for water and wastewater, if you don't mind, I'll take them both at the same time, Madam Chair. We are proposing a 5% increase. The most important part of this memo is on the second page where it says average customer cost with consumption rate increases. This really tells you what the average rate user will see for their quarterly and their annual billing changes. So for the average user, it will be a $9.34 increase per quarter for water and a $21.45 increase for sewer. And for customers who have both water and sewer, it'll be a $30.79 increase per quarter. If you look at the chart above, you will see the individual charges, and basically for the customer service charge for the 5/8 meter. And I focus on this one because this is 99% of our customer base. It is a $1.02 increase per quarter. The other charges that are down below that, if you add all them up together, there's probably 20 of those accounts in the entire water system because those are commercial accounts. So those are not a lot of customers. That's why I focus on the 5/8 meter. And down the bottom is our cross connection testing fees, the meter replacement. All those are proposed to stay exactly the same with no increase. And again, if I could back up for 1 second, the catalyst that drives this change every year is when our budget changes. And our budget changes, it's fixed costs that changes our budgets. We have contractual agreements in our in our salaries and wages. And then we have increase in pensions, Medicare, and retirement contributions. And those are the driving forces behind our increases in our budget. All the other line items in these enterprise accounts stay stagnant.
So it's a total of 5% increase
5% across the boards.
across the board.
And that is exactly the same as last year. Last year was 5% across the boards. No questions?
No questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
If it pleases the board, there was a conversation during our last meeting about potentially funding FISC through the enterprise account. And I know, Brett, one of your questions was, Dennis, can this be done and what kind of an effect would it have on the budget? So the town manager reached out to our finance director, Kenny Costa, and asked him for some figures if we were to fund it through. And Kenny came back with, we would borrow 900,000, taking 300,000 out of retained earnings. And we would finance the rest for the longest amount we could, which is the longest period we could, which is 20 years at a projected 4.5. It would add $70,000 to the debt service per year for 20 years to the enterprise account, which would add another 8% to the proposed increase. So instead of a 5% increase, it would have to be an 11% increase this year. I just thought that information would be important to talk about, since it's one of the discussions we've had. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Dennis. And we answered all questions, I believe, okay?
Yeah.
I take a motion to vote the water and sewer rates. Move.
Take this one, I move that the board, you already opened the public hearing. I move that the board of Selectmen vote to approve the fiscal year 2024 water and sewer rates as proposed by the Director of Public Works.
I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous action.
Thank you.
Thanks, Em.
Would you like to continue?
So I was just finishing up with the 140, indicating that they're going to be preparing a revised set of plans to then review with officials, emergency responders, and businesses to get feedbacks before then we can provide that feedback back to MassDOT and their engineers for then having them rev their plans. And that's just part of the process. We have a public hearing, 25% design, or 25% design public hearing back in January. Next stage really is moving through to 50%. At 75%, there'll be another public hearing. I'd have to guess that is easily a year out for that time, because there's a lot of utility work. There's a lot of additional engineering that needs to happen. But as those new plans come forward, bring in front of the board, myself, Dennis Westgate, DPW Director, and Michael Antonellis, town planner, have been attending those meetings representing.
Yeah. It's great to, just if I may, it's great to hear that they're looking to integrate parking.
As the board knows from attending that public hearing, one of the comments was, well, this is a state route. There is no parking on state route.
Yeah.
State very easily could have taken that position. And in fact, Dennis and I heard a couple of people take that position. But I think there is some level of recognition that this is a little bit more unique, that there may need to be some politicking in this to sort of convince some other officials that this is the right thing for Upton.
Yeah.
So,
thank you.
Other things that are being worked on, last week, the housing production plan steering committee met, and they started reviewing draft plans and implementation matrix. While no definitive date, I would really anticipate that as summer comes to a close, we're going to be looking at approval coming out of them and then bringing it before the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board for approval to adopt that before sending it off to the state. End of the fiscal year, we are rushing to complete some ADA improvements. Tomorrow, they're going to start work on the door at the police station, and they'll follow with doing the ADA handicap access controls for police station, fire station, and also beginning of next week for delivering a ramp to replace the wooden ramp structure for the DPW trailer, administrative trailer. This is being paid for out of a Mass Office of Disability grant. For one last thing, their work continues at the community center with basically some fine detail work. Sod was installed in what's referred to as the bowl. This is at the bottom of the playground, a grass sort of hole, just past the slides. They're going to be putting up some temporary fencing once they make sure that then access is available, people can get around. Slides will be operational, so we're getting close. Also, Dennis is doing a hero's job trying to keep track of lighting and HVAC error codes that are popping up at the building. Engineers are on scene almost every other day trying to resolve some of these things. Speaking for Dennis, it is an added frustration that he probably would not appreciate in his work schedule. And lastly, or second to last, staff is meeting internally to develop exercise room policy to bring before the board at a future meeting. And the building committee continues to meet to review final closeout punch list items. So that's wrapping up. As I mentioned, this town manager's report, as well as the one from earlier in June, is updated on the town's website, where then residents can see updates on all other various projects.
None here.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Next we have the public input and board members updates. Is there any public input?
That I don't.
That's you, yes.
Standards on for sick, or you want me to go?
I'm good.
Safe to meet you. Thanks for your help. Hi, I'm Andrea Malm. I live at 99 Christian Hill Road, Upton. And I am here to voice serious concern for the speeding on our streets. It's become absolutely dangerous to walk on the street. So I came here today, and the police department has been wonderful over the last 3 years. I call every time I almost get hit. So I'm on record at the police department, have calling numerous times over the last 3 years. And they come, they sit in our driveway, but it's a temporary fix. So what's happening right now is it's actually accelerated to a point where I try to walk my dog around the block, and I would never, ever consider going to the bottom of the hill. I'm only trying to stay at the top. But the cars are speeding. There's blind spots. And then what's happening now, it's insane, but I had an accident this past Monday where I was walking my dog, and I always stop. I was wearing an orange safety vest. I was pulled over, stopped on the side of the road. I have a Great Dane, a 140-pound dog. She was sitting, I was standing. A car was coming up the street, and it wasn't like going around me. I wasn't moving. So what happened is I went to get off the road even more, and I just slipped on mud, which is understandable, but I shouldn't have to get all the way off the road. But the car was not at all going around me, and I fell, and I don't remember what happened from when I slipped. I know I tried to get off the road more because the car wasn't even trying to go around me. It was going way over the speed limit. They always do. And then the next thing I knew is my glasses were on the asphalt. I was covered in mud, and I was so embarrassed. I looked back to see the car to see if they saw me. Like, I was so embarrassed. I was covered in mud. I have abrasions all over my right leg. And I went home, showered because I was covered, but my face was killing me. So I have unfortunately broken the right side of my face. So I knew that if I did break bones, that I needed to check, and it hurt so bad it swelled up. So turns out I found when I picked up my glasses that were on the asphalt when I was trying to get up. my dog's fur was wedged under the hair, was under the hair. So I think what happened, because I don't remember, I blacked out between the time I fell, was I think I hit her going down, which I'm grateful because it would have smashed my face on the asphalt. And then this only happened because I was like afraid of getting hit by the car. So this has been going on for years. It's accelerating. And what's even worse, this wasn't even the worst part of my walk. Twice before I even rounded the corner at Christian Hill, I almost got hit. What people are doing is I stopped, pulled over. People actually accelerate. They see you and they're trying, I believe they're trying to get to me first so they don't have to stop. But they literally almost graze you. That happened twice on the morning before I slipped on the mud. You know what I mean? It's absolutely unmanageable. I have several neighbors here and over here that I also experienced different things and they can share their story. But what I'm looking for is the speed limit I would like the speed limit to be reduced to 25. I talked to Dennis and I called Chief and they were both extremely supportive. And I talked to our selectwoman and she guided me because I didn't know what to do. I've never done anything like this, but I'm done and I'm not going to move and I'm not going to sit in my driveway and be afraid to walk my dog. I have a couple of the neighbors who are older who will not walk anymore because they're afraid to leave their driveway because they're going to get hit. Or they'll just go right across the street and come right home. This is unacceptable. And the police have been wonderful. But there's 2 cops. It's a big town. They have limited resources. They can't be in all the areas at once. And they're there, it's a Band-Aid. We're looking, the community, our street, are looking for a permanent fix to this problem because it's only accelerating. And it's become dangerous. And I see these young families that are moving into the neighborhood and they're walking with their strollers. It's incredibly dangerous. And I know there's other streets in the town, but ours is a cut through. Everyone knows our street is a cut through. They want to avoid 140 and they like the one Main Street and then 140. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do next, but I will do whatever it takes. I'm not going to.
Thank you, Andrea. And question for Dennis. In order to put a 25-mile-an-hour sign up, does that have to go through the state and the police department?
There's a process that we have, a lawful process.
Yep.
We have to follow that requires a study done and an 80% mark. So basically, we have to run right up a certain amount of time. And we take 80% of the findings of that, and it tells us what the speed limit needs to be. So we can't, in Massachusetts, decide that we want a road to be 25 or 35 or 45. We actually have to follow the process to do it. And the scary part about it is most of my experiences, I have found that when we do that on a road, we find out that we have to increase the speed limit and not lower it. So it always makes me nervous. When I spoke with Andrea today, I suggested that we engage, she asked the board to support Public Works Department to engage a traffic engineer to assist us with taking a harder look at that road because there are literally dozens of traffic calming measures that are approved in the state of Massachusetts. And we would be arbitrarily throwing money away without taking a hard look at the road and based on its topography, the curves, the narrowness of the road, to figure out what a traffic engineer would recommend that the town do to get the most bang for the buck, for making people do the speed limit. I guess is what I want to say.
Well, the 25-mile-an-hour sign is due, and they increase it due to the fact of the spacing between the houses and.
Some of that has to do with that, but generally, and the police chief is the authority for that. Anytime we change speed limits in a town, it is required that it go through the police chief. And the police chief generally will initiate the study for the radar to be able to come up with the 80%. But the traffic study that I'm recommending will do a full blown, it will include that with the police chief, and it'll also take a look at all the different traffic calming measures that we have that are acceptable in Massachusetts that meet ASHTO regulations and FHA regulations that we could impose on that road and maybe get traffic under control. It's a narrow, windy, hilly road. It has no lines painted on it. It's what you would see. It's what you would picture in most towns that have, they have historic roads in town and they designate them historic. That road has that kind of feel to it. There isn't a lot of, it's not the kind of road you will see a sidewalk. There's a lot of terrain that would not be conducive to putting a sidewalk on it. There's a lot of stone walls, a lot of trees would have to be removed. The line of sight is challenging in some areas, but the clear cutting that we would need to do would do more damage than good, which is why I recommended to Andrea that she asked the board to support the public works. And as you know, we have a line item in DPW that we use for taking a look at intersections that require four-way stops or three-way stops, or if a road needs to have something looked at it that we want the input from a traffic engineer to stamp it and take the liability off the town. That's what that funding is for. But I think this road qualifies for that.
As one selectman, I would support that also. I mean, I live on a street the same, Andrea, and cars go down through there 60, 70 miles an hour.
It's insane.
And I know what you're going through. People can't walk.
No, and it shouldn't be like that. I mean, like, anyone who has a dog would like to just walk their dog to get exercise with their dog and not just have to throw a ball in the yard. But it's dangerous and time consuming and financially burdened. Like, so this happened on Monday. I went to the walk-in clinic in Hopkinton, waited an hour and a half to be told to go to the ER because they were worried about brain bleed and broken bones out of my eye. And then I wasted another 6 hours and then several hundreds of dollars for these testing that I'm gonna have to pay. You know what I mean? It's just, it's unacceptable. And Dennis and Chief were great. And I did put it in writing, what you had requested. I requested, and I sent it to the board, request for an engineering study on Christian Hill Road to make the necessary changes to the roadway and or speed limits to reduce the extremely dangerous speeding conditions. And the police are great, but they can only do what they can do. And one more thing, I would like to continue on yours, the speed table. I know that's part of this whole study, but we, the people on the street, it's just unmanageable. And if it is scenic, is there any, on that note, is there any way that it can be like labeled, or I don't know any of the rules or how it works, but if it's a scenic historic route, can that have any different on speed?
It has the charm of one, but we don't have scenic roads enough.
Can we get one?
It's a legislation.
Well, what is, okay, on that note, if I went that route, does that reduce the speed on the street?
No,
Then that's not worth it.
it just makes it more difficult for people to purchase land and destroy stone walls to put their driveways in. And it's a different set of rules for how things are developed.
So I just want any guidance from the community here, because we're all on the same page. And it's just unacceptable that you fear walking out your door. And these cars, like I said, my husband explained it to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because I literally looked back, and the car was so close to me twice. And they were trying, my husband's like, they're trying to get to you first so they don't have to stop. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. And I observed that twice before I slept.
You're talking about two cars.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, when two cars.
So one's trying to pass you first.
Yeah, and they go faster and they almost clip you. That happened twice to me before I fell, when I was just waiting for the car to go around, which wasn't going around.
I mean, nothing that really hasn't been said. It's an unbelievable problem that happens in a few different places, but it's worse when it happens to be a cut through, right? So there's people that don't live there, right? Like we have teenagers on West River Street that are going really fast, but there's not much you can do about that. But this is a cut through. So not only it's compounded by the fact that it's a small, narrow country road, but also that you have people that may or may not be in the area, in the neighborhood, even live in the town or what have you. So they just sort of care less because they're not neighbors. And it's scary. And, you know, I think it's the right thing to do to try to figure out as quickly as we can, what are the best, fastest things we can do to try to limit the speed of the cars. You know, to your point, sending the police there is it's okay, but really we want something that's more systemic and solves it on an ongoing basis so that people can walk their dogs and walk down their road and feel safe pushing their kids in a stroller down the street. It's
and even if there was a way, the bottom of the hill, we're not gonna straighten the road out. But if we had an opportunity for people to at least walk around the block, like give them something they could, people actually drive there, park down the bottom of the street in Glenview, and they walk that block, because it used to be safe. But so everyone's talking about the sidewalks here,
Fine with
this,
I'm fine with doing a study.
I'm fine also, because correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but within the last year, the town has put up a couple of signs lower on Christian Hill because of blind corners,
Yes,
driveways, and dangers. So I think we all agree, Christian Hill is the road I drive often. And if I'm doing the speed limit, which is around 25 or 30, people are this far off of my bumper, livid. And then I'm the person that actually stops for the people walking and then goes around, and I've got the horns and the fingers and everything else. So I would definitely be all for an engineering study to see, because it's a problem, not just where you are at the top, it's from top to bottom.
oh yeah, because I've reached out to several, like I said, my neighbors are here and over here that could come tonight, but they're all supportive. So if there's anything we can do on the street to help you, in addition, once you get the study done, because I'm gonna be here all the time, because I'm not going away, because I want a permanent fix. I love the thoughts, it's great. But we just need a permanent solution. You have several ideas that sound they could work.
And I think that the board is in full support of that. But this gentleman, your name?
My name is Ralph Fusco. I live at 115 and only a few houses down from. What I'd like to suggest in your interim of your study, which I highly recommend, is could we draw a line in the middle of that road? People come so fast that even the oncoming cars, we've had to pull over tight to the trees because people swing around. They're coming so fast, they're halfway over that center line. And there's really no real place to go in many areas. You're going to get hit anyway. At least if there was a line in the middle, people could see that they're over the line. Now, there's no discerning where you are. You're going fast, you're doing this, you're doing that. And we've almost had an accident a couple of times as well, but just trying to move over. And people still coming on. They don't care. And now they've started to have street illegal, not legal in the street, dirt bikes that have been coming in 2 and 3s, all hours of the day and night. I tried to get video of them so I could see if maybe anybody recognized them, but they're running rampant now, and that's got to stop too, because it also scares our dog. And I'm worried that one time when the dog is in the yard, he hears it and gets scared and chases and goes out in the middle of the street. So there's, I think, something that we could do in the interim that doesn't have to take off money and will at least tell people to help them to stay on their own side of the road.
Maybe you could talk with the
I don't
DPW.
think it's expensive.
it's through the chair, if I may. The problem with the line is single lines are no longer legal in Massachusetts. We have to paint double lines. We have roads that have single lines and they're grandfathered in, so when we repaint them, but if I have a road that doesn't have any lines on it and I put lines on it, I'm required by law to paint double lines.
Paint double lines.
And the second part of it is that I really want to do something, so even if I did the cheap paint, it's there for a year. And if the engineer comes in and decides that he has a different traffic calming advice, and it requires different than that line painting, I'd have to paint it black to get rid of it. You know what I mean?
I understand. I think you weigh that against the possibility of a human life.
Well, I'm not doing that, sir.
No, I understand. There's a lot of regulations and there seems to be a lot of red tape and you're disregarding, not necessarily disregarding, but it's downplaying her injuries. It's downplaying anybody else who could get hurt or killed on there.
So,
I don't think anybody's downplaying any.
so let me,
A lot of rhetoric and not much action. And if something minor like that, put the double line in the middle of the
so
street.
let me give an example. Suppose that the engineer does his study and he has traffic calming recommendations for the board to consider. But he doesn't recommend painting line because the road is so narrow that he feels as though that painting a line is going to actually force the cars in their travel lane closer to the edge of the road and endanger people even. What if that's part of his recommendation? Then I've actually done something and made things worse. You know what I'm saying?
You're pushing, yeah, I
I
understand.
understand what you're saying. I just think that something needs to be done. Speed bump, take them right out when the guys.
I promise I'll go as fast as I can. I will try to get this result quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dear Mama, 110 Christian House. I've lived there since '87. And when I moved in, I used to mow my grass by the riding roller, and I went two hits to the left of the trees, and they had not told us land view. They widened the road so much, it used to be so much narrower. And, I think it might be a little narrow in a lot of spots for double lines from my construction experience over the years, but, all those trees, like, if you come off of Fifth Mill onto Christian Hill on the right, maybe if some of those trees were kind of removed, and there's a lot of dead trees across the street from my house too, that, are definitely in the roadway. The road goes around those trees now, especially up there. When Rounds and Kathy moved in, there was a big accident. A guy smashed right into a tree on their driveway, pulling a trailer. You know, so there's a lot to consider, and can't walk my goats around anymore. There's too much traffic up there. But it's hard to even get to the mailbox, to go to the street on the mailbox. I just go in my car. So if I get hit in the car, because mine's right on the corner, a double corner. So it's more than the average bad road. It's great that you guys
Well, I think,
are willing to help. And
well, you have the support of the board, and I would like Dennis to work with the neighbors up there, with the police chief. Is everybody agreeable with that?
Yes, is that,
And see what we can come up with.
Can I ask one more question? Is it, in the interim, is there any opportunities to put like a flashing or solar or something that just catches their attention? Just as a temporary, you know what I mean? Like even if it's too hard, it's just something that just
That's the kind of thing.
mimics that there's someone that.
some signs on each.
I saw that, I actually saw that, but is there anything like that we can do in alliance with the police? Because they can't be there, but they must have some flashing something somewhere in the backyard there that they can.
Maybe that radar.
Yeah, like something that,
Signs in, I mean, I've seen them.
I've seen them
I know
around.
that Upton, we have at least one or two that's sort of like, if you're over the speed limit, it flashes red. And
Yeah,
says,
like
"Slow
you're-
down."
like
If you're less than the speed limit, it's green.
Yeah, so
It says,
anything-
Thank you. Back to
just
you.
something like that.
The police chief recently received a grant, and I believe he purchased some of those and we were getting ready to put them up in some locations around town.
We
So
will
I
give
can
you our road.
I will certainly speak to him about that.
They've had some on the lower end.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's enough width to put it, they can put it in.
they can put it much. They can, yeah, we're,
This is something you can all talk
okay.
about.
Perfect.
Just coming in here, this has nothing to do with that. There's no parking to get here. I'm trying to legally parked at the library with my handicap pass, hoping my car's still there when I go out. The brewery, there's no parking. Maybe they could have a section at night for meetings that the public
My
can
handicap.
come there, go over there. Is that been addressed? Because that's kind of crazy.
There's a big zoning board meeting going in the basement,
Oh,
Yes, yes,
parking lot out here is full.
right.
But the brewery's talking right now. It's Wednesday night at like 7 o'clock.
I thank you all for your input, and Dennis, I know you will try and,
My best and as quickly as I can.
Do you want
And
to have
everybody here,
Oh, you got it too?
do. And everybody in the neighborhood, feel free to reach out to me. It's
Thank you.
I just wanted to offer to the police that they can sit in my driveway and watch with radar.
okay,
115.
We've given the whole corner of our, we've given the police, they know, that you can meet them.
thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you. 6A, annual reappointment.
This is the page this.
Oh, we have.
that's the most up to date.
Okay. Purple is the ones we're voting on.
No, yours, yours, I gave you this fine, but
Oh.
red.
you're looking at something that's on.
You gave me this one, so
This is what I.
you get two.
Okay, I
Yeah.
got,
Not the one that was second.
all right.
Maybe following.
A lot of action.
I keep forgetting what the colors mean.
The key is on the last
I
page.
see it.
Yes.
Okay.
Purple is reappointments. And if there's names off to the right, those are the people that are
I put it, yeah,
Applicants.
applicants.
for the vacancy or for the seat,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You want to take certain sections?
Jody.
Yeah, yeah, I think that we just want. So,
Are we doing this?
want
If you
to,
could pass down. Okay.
you need a copy?
This is the updated one.
Okay.
All right. You want to go
Can we
first, Brett?
Yeah, so I don't, so what we usually do is just sort of go through section by section.
Okay,
one at a
that
time.
makes sense.
If we need to discuss it, we'll discuss it. Otherwise, we'll just make a motion.
Okay.
Let's see, the first one here is 1 year appointment for KP Law. So I make a motion that we appoint KP Law as the town attorney for a term of 1 year.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the next one is the Disability Affairs Grievance Coordinator. So I would make a motion to.
Can I have a question first?
Of course.
I know Maggie was recently hired. Is she ADA certified?
So within her job description, it is a responsibility to be the designated ADA coordinator.
Okay.
If there are, there's no requirement within the job description to be certified in anything. I didn't mean it the way that it sounds. Just realized as it came out, that sounded a little odd. If there is an ADA certification, it's not a component of her job description. I'm actually not really aware that there is something, so I kind of learn more about it. So that if we did need to sort of have that, that position is different than the ADA role that the building commissioner then takes responsibility for compliance for rules and regulations as far as building code, AVA access issues. Her role is really more of a sort of coordinating role, working and supporting the Disability Commission, trying to encourage taking away barriers more on a policy and say project level, but not on a regulatory level like the building commissioner is.
Right, I just, in a previous life, I worked under the ADA. And I know the people I worked with were ADA certified. So when I read this Disability Affairs Grievance Coordinator, I thought, well, you should at least know the law if you're gonna answer the grievances. That was my only question. If it's part of her job, great. Make the motion, Brett.
Make a motion that we appoint Maggie Gunderson as the Disability Affairs Grievance Coordinator.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you want to do the Economic Development Committee? Do you have questions about how the process works?
Yeah, if you want to just keep going, I'll just keep seconding it. That works.
Yep, all right, that's fine. I make a motion that we appoint Eugene Burnett, Pierre Cody, David Brooks, and Craig Winefuss to 1 year appointments on the Economic Development Committee.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion that we appoint Robert Jordan, Dominique Ross, and William Taylor for 1 year appointments to the Green Community Committee.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion that we appoint Christine Scott, Catherine Robinson, and Alan Rosenfeld to 1 year terms on the Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we have we'll just keep going because we just need to hear back from Jean Burnett and then, Laura, obviously you wouldn't be a community at large member anymore, but.
No,
there's also
actually,
Board of
it's-
Selectmen reps. You
In
could do that.
the committee, we had discussed, it actually kind of worked out. If Steve and I flip places,
Oh, good.
it works.
Yeah.
So, and
Works for me.
we're both agreeable.
Oh,
So,
good.
Is that,
That's good.
you okay with that, Maureen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Jean did get back to me, so he should be on the,
Okay. All right. So I'll change the motion. And do we know Steve? I mean,
Steve is agreeable, yes.
Steve's agreeable. Okay. So does he have to put in an application or because he's on it, he doesn't have to put in an
So you're
application?
gonna just.
I just don't,
Gonna be the, yes.
because there's no one else, there's no other
So
applicants. So
this-
I just know we've gotten in trouble with stuff like that before where
Right.
people have,
And we're almost
we've
done.
appointed things for people that didn't put in
So
an
I mean,
application.
one of the things is that the charge did not indicate that the Board of Selectmen representative had to be a board member. So, and I've also talked to Steve, he's like, well, we can just swap or we can just stay in, we're almost done. So I don't think, if the board wanted an application, I'm sure Steve would
Yeah.
submit
I
it.
mean, I definitely am not suggesting, it's only for other people, like, I don't care, I definitely don't care if Steve puts in an application or not, I just don't want someone else to say, hey, I was interested in that committee and I didn't see anything close, but if you put it out there, right, so it's been published, so people had opportunities to apply and all that, so I think it's fine. Talking myself out of it.
Okay.
So then make the motion.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna make a motion that we appoint Laura Hebb, Stephen Metallion, and Jean Burnett to 1-year terms for the Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Make a motion that we appoint Deb Amarelli, Mike Penko, Bill Taylor, Ed Bergman, Gary Sturarts, and Sally Kent to Board of Health member. There is an applicant, so we want to talk about the only reason I'm asking is because we would have to not appoint, well, there's a Board of Health member, but we don't appoint that, right? So essentially we've got 6 seats and 7 people expressing interest. And 6 of them are asking for reappointment. 1 person is a new person. Does that make
Which
sense?
has to be determined by the Board of Health.
Well, no, I mean, we could appoint Linnea and not appoint one of the current members.
Members?
Hey,
If
can I,
we chose to do that, I'm just
I
saying,
was gonna say, if I throw my Board of Health member hat on, nobody's dying to get on this committee. So if we have somebody that really wants to be on the committee, my
They can go talk to the
recommendation
Board of
would
Health.
be to, remove the Board of Health member and add the person that wants to join. I'm a firm believer that people should be on committees because they want to, not because they're on another committee and it's a slot that needs to be filled.
is there a way to do that?
Can we do that, Joe?
First on, I would be whether or not the Board of Health would consider appointing
Linnea.
as
Right.
their representative
Right, that would be the other.
for that. And just say, as part, just
Right.
maintain communication and update the board, as may be
Yeah.
necessary. But that would be my thought to sort of
Yeah,
push it off that way.
right, so it would be,
That sounds fabulous. So
Yeah.
at the next Board of Health meeting, we'll bring it up, which
Yeah.
could be next month because we're due.
yeah, okay,
We can do that.
perfect,
I'll make sure Diane knows in the morning.
okay,
So did we second?
love that. So let me
Okay.
finish, did I make them?
You made the motion for all of them, but then went back to the Board of Health.
Okay, so then I'll make the motion. I make a motion that we appoint Debbie Morelli, Mike Penko, Bill Taylor, Ed Bergman, Gary Strickard, Sally Kent, 1-year terms on the Lake and Pod Committee.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so same thing on the Land Stewardship Committee. Is that yellow? Is that a vacancy, Sandy?
Yes.
So we've got 2 applicants for 1 vacancy. Assuming that we want to reappoint everybody that's currently on there. But we don't necessarily need to do that.
Amy Bonina has applied for the Lake and Pond Committee and for the Registrar of Voters.
Land stewardship.
That's the land stewardship.
Yep. Yep. And it's,
So do you want to go back to that?
for the registrar of voters? Or-
Yes.
I don't think we've gotten to that one yet, have we?
No, but I'm just saying that she's put in for 2 applications.
Oh, gotcha. So put Scott here and then put her in the registrar of voters. Is that what you're thinking?
That makes sense to me. Like I said, once again, if somebody's
I was
gonna,
gonna say just to get people
volunteer.
involved. Exactly. I'd
Yeah.
rather have people involved and,
the more the merrier, as they say.
yeah, let me just.
So we would appoint Scott.
So let me just look quick.
I have his
Oh, yeah.
application here.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his application. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think he's well qualified.
Yes.
All right, here we go. I make a motion that we appoint Eric Russell, Scott Heim, Michael Panko, Bill Taylor, Mary Overholt, Marcella Stasha, Livermore to 1-year terms on the Land Stewardship Committee.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Mosquito Control Board. This one I wanted to, so we can either just appoint these 5. I'm not interested. It doesn't, the reason the board set this up was when the state was doing the spraying and we wanted to give the town the ability to have a plan to essentially say to the state, we don't want you to mandate state spraying in our town. And we did that, right? That was completed through town meeting action. And so I don't know what exactly we need this board to do. Beyond that, I know I know they're trying to be active and trying to get things done. But I know that the Board of Health, there's people that went to the Board of Health. So I'm fine with either just appointing these or considering
Can we
looking at the charge.
discontinue the board and put it under the control of the Board of Health
Board of Health.
or? Because have they had meetings? Have they been able to have?
They've had a challenge, getting forms. I don't believe they've actually had a meeting for a number of months.
Yeah, because people
I'm
aren't engaged and it's not, and
Right,
like
so
the mandate's not clear. So if anything, we should either disband it or reevaluate the charge and what we expect them to be doing. Because I think it would be different than what they started off with.
And we've codified it by town meeting, so it's kind of a moot committee at this point.
But they've all requested to be reappointed.
I
Just saying. I mean,
But I
that's
mean, I also-
something we can talk to them about.
Can we postpone this and maybe
Yeah,
send a
let's-
letter to them and talk to
Yeah.
them and say, it's great, you want to be reappointed, but
Right, so, but, right, if people have
Do you
energy to
think
give, I'd rather have them give energy to the highest value thing, and I'm not sure this is the highest value use of their time.
so I would,
You want
So
to
we'll
put it,
pass on this.
we'll pass
Yeah,
on
we'll
this.
pass.
Table this
Yes.
one or whatever, okay. I would make a motion to appoint Mike Panko, Christine Scott, Bill Taylor, Alan Miano, Todd Dodd, Cheryl McIndoe to 1-year terms on the Open Space Committee.
I second.
All those in favor?
I make a motion that we appoint Denise Smith and Michael Bradley as our records access officers for 1-year terms.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye. I make a motion that we appoint Jeff Boss, David Brooks, John Daly, David Lane, Steve Bracketon to 1-year terms on the Technology Committee.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion that we appoint Dennis Westgate to a 1-year term as the tree warden.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Let's see. Yeah.
So we have a new
Concept.
applicant for the Affordable Housing Trust.
Yes. Jeannie Brooks.
Yeah.
And we have one vacancy or
I mean, I
It's
think
like three.
there's
3?
3.
Kathy Robertson's been
She has
campaigning,
responded.
attempting to, well, she's been attempting to get people on. Okay, she should be purple, so she wants to stay.
Okay, so you want Kathy?
She's been
on.
campaigning to what?
To get people on, she's.
Trying to
Yeah,
get
she-
people involved. Yeah.
She's been the only one on for a while, so she
Yeah.
would like to add people to the Affordable
Okay.
Housing Trust.
So Kathy would be a 1-year term.
Yep.
Sandy?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I make a motion that we appoint Kathy Robertson, Jeannie Brooks, and Maureen Dwinell to 1-year terms. It says 2-year term above it. So these,
1 year, two, it's two,
I'm sorry, yes, it's a 2-year term. Maureen would be 1 year as chair.
right,
I see, okay.
Okay,
So I make a motion to appoint Kathy Robertson and Jeannie Brooks to 2-year terms and Chair Maureen Dwinell to a 1-year term on the Affordable Housing Trust.
I second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, Conservation Commission. I make a motion that we appoint Michael Penko and Christine Scott to 3-year terms on the Conservation Commission.
I second.
All those in favor?
I make a motion that we appoint Lori Fantini, Richard Provost, and Margaret Watson to 3-year terms on the Council on Aging.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Make a motion that we appoint Kate Baden, Robin Jokela, Shelley Glassman, and Jennifer Conrad to 3-year terms on the Cultural Council.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion that we appoint Treasurer Collector Jessica Gomez as the custodian of tax title properties.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Make a motion that we appoint Edward Phillips and Catherine Warfam to 3-year terms on the Historical Commission.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Make a motion that we appoint Treasurer Collector Jessica Gomez and Board of Selectmen Chairman Maureen Dwinell. Sorry.
One's a 3-year.
Yeah. Sorry. I make a motion that we appoint Jessica Gomez to a 3-year term and Chair Maureen Dwinell to a 1-year term in the OPEB Trust Commissioners Trust.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Make a motion that we appoint Scott Van Ralton to a 3-year term to the Personnel Board.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Here's the one.
We have a Registrar of Voters, which is Amy Bonilla. So
It's a 3-year term,
Yeah.
right?
that's a 3-year term on that one.
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes, it is.
I make a motion to appoint Amy Bonilla to a 3-year term on the Registrar of Voters.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye.
And then for ZBA, this is the board that's going from 5 members to 7 members. The legislation has to get approved. We've got 3 applicants for 2 seats that are up for reappointment. One of those seats is as an associate member, and one of the seats is a 3-year term. And we have Don Spargo, Robert Butler, Michael Geld, and Ted Briggs interested in serving.
We want to pass, because we're waiting for the Attorney General's office to come back with the approval of the 5-man board.
So one of the things, and I mentioned at the last meeting, that Denise had already submitted all the town meeting certification materials to the AG's office and is now awaiting feedback. So in talking to her, and she's reached out to the state. She thinks that basically we're going to get final word back on that. So being that close, and one of the things very often when there's zoning changes, sometimes you don't get AG approvals back for 6 months. If that was going to be the case, then going ahead and making initial appointments would probably make sense. But if Denise is basically hearing from them, because we had from a zoning perspective and article perspective, we had a pretty simple town meeting for AG's office review. That if we held off to have appointments and just extended Ted Briggs' appointment for 2 months to then come back in July or August to then consider all together those applications, that would definitely be an option that the board could do. The board could fill an associate member and, consider the incumbent in renewing them or renewing another, or we're going to then have 2 additional members that are going to need to be interviewed and still an associate vacancy. So
Yeah, I don't think we should,
I don't-
I don't think we should appoint someone as associate member because they'll have the option to be a full member once the board seats increase.
I agree.
So I
I think the most prudent thing to do would be to pass over it, especially where it's pending. We can take it up as soon as it's approved. Denise has gotten word, it's gonna be relatively soon.
We do need to reappoint Ted Briggs at least for the interim period, so they have a
June
forum.
30th, right?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so until when?
June 30th.
And one of the arguments, one of the
Is
questions.
June 30th gonna be?
No, is that gonna be? No.
No, I basically would say,
Till the,
give us two months of, probably August.
Say August 31st.
Can,
Yeah.
can we
for-
say,
Because, one of the main things is making sure that we have time, one, we could always extend an appointment if we did want to do it shorter than August 31st.
I think it's fine. I don't think we need to open.
no.
no, I was
That's
gonna
fine.
say, can we say August 31st or until the 5-member board comes into being?
I mean, that's where we could.
I mean, if we just said we appoint him until the 5-member board comes into being, we don't have to worry about violating any dates.
Right. The main thing, just for, one of the concerns that someone may ask the question is, well, what happens between now and when we have a 5-member board if a 40B or an application gets submitted? And why not fill the associate member? At that point, even if you have 2 associates and 3 regular members, your quorum is still changing. You need for, realistically, any application is going to be re-advertised. So we're not losing anything by pushing things off and not filling the associate position.
Got it.
I make a motion that we appoint Ted Briggs until August 31st or when the board's increase from 5 to 7 members or from 3 to 5 members is approved by the state legislature.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So for people that are here, what we would end up doing is posting for appointment as 2 regular members and then, well, actually 3 regular members because one would be an incumbent and 1 associate member, so that there would be basically 3 vacancies and 1 test division that then people could indicate what they would like to apply for.
All set? Yep.
Yes.
7A, common victual license and entertainment license, Nipmuc Rod and Garden Club.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, there she is. Unmute as she's. Can't hear her.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Unmuted.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Allie from Nipmuc Rod and Gun. I'm happy to answer.
One sec, we
any
can't hear you.
questions.
1 second.
Wait a second. No, we're,
Okay, there you go.
okay. There we go. Okay.
Try now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
We can.
Allison.
Hi. I'm from Nipmuc Rod and Gun Club, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
There's a lot of
Oh, now I can't hear.
Just finding some information. Just give us 1 sec, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions. This is a continuation of a long process.
Yes.
I watched the process and I have no questions either.
Then could we have a motion?
I make a motion that the select board vote to approve the annual common victular license and annual entertainment license for Nipmuc Road and Gun Club at 88 Fisk Mill Road, Upton.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anticlimactic.
8A, road race application, Hot to Trot 5K Tri-County Regional Chamber applicant. Isn't this one that we do every year?
I believe so, because I think they run by my house every year. Looking at the route, I assumed it was that one.
Yes.
I usually look at these and say, Chiefs approved it? Okay.
And
Date
they
works.
have,
I think
he
we're
has.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's something I think that they do every year.
I'm pretty sure they do.
Is there anyone here from? Chief Bradley?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes,
This is an
Is
annual
it-
event,
yes.
and we work closely with the applicant to make sure that they follow all the rules and have officers present for details for traffic.
Questions?
No questions here.
No questions.
I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the road race application for the Hot to Trot 5K road race submitted by Tri-County Regional Chamber of Commerce to be held on Saturday, July 29th, 2023 at 8 a.m.
Right, second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
8B, review and approval of projects to be funded through ARPA. We're gonna start with, do you have information on, no, you already gave it to us, right, on how to fund Fisk Ave, I mean? Okay,
In the board packet, you do have an email from Ken Foster, Finance Director, sort of laying things out. And the control sheet and the additional information narrative have the same information that Dennis Westgate identified, that we'd be looking at an 8% increase just, and that would be on top of the typical 5% increase. And then see a debt service calculator that then sort of does that almost $70,000 for 20 years. And then included information that was previously provided to the board, itemization for construction for Fisk Ave, and then also the project administration services. And then lastly, one of the things that was supposed to be in the packet was just an updated memo that then listed out some other projects that the board had previously seen, as well as including a sort of new concept for a feasibility study to basically try to identify how we could achieve the same goals as a Maple Ave sidewalk.
Were we able to get any information on the Maple Ave sidewalk project?
No, Madam Chair, just the information that I originally provided, which was an estimate of $260,000 or $280,000 for engineering services, and an estimated construction cost of $1.5 million. And that is all I have done so far.
So the $280,000 for Maple Ave did not get approved. One of our selectmen meetings, so.
I don't think we had a motion on it. It didn't get seconded. Right? So,
That's correct, that's what I meant, something gets forwarded.
I have a question, Madam
Yes.
Chair. Mr. Westgate, now that we own the cemetery, instead of bringing, I think the goal of the sidewalk was when Nipmuc was built 20 years ago, to bring the students downtown. Now that we own the cemetery, does the cemetery connect to Victoria Drive? And is there some way we could get the kids from Valley Tech to Victoria Drive for a lot less money than going the length of Maple Ave? Because I do believe kids will take the most direct route.
We would have to examine that. We do, the cemetery, the new cemetery land does abut it.
and that's what you had talked about, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, at least you talked to me about.
so,
It is.
Yeah.
And we have a sidewalk that right now that goes from 140 basically to Victoria, although it's in deplorable condition. Obviously, it would need to be redone. But if the board would like to examine that route, we could ask the engineers to consider this. It would be a much less scope of work, so it'd be considerably less expensive than the $280,000. Obviously, but I don't have an estimate for tonight.
that's something we could discuss later.
Right. I would,
Yeah, I just think, if there's a simpler, less expensive way to accomplish the same goal, that's something we should investigate.
There could be, but we could also run into issues that we
You
didn't
won't,
anticipate.
no, right.
And that's where one of the things you could start with is essentially a feasibility study that is a high level, sort of looking at available resources, existing contours, walking the site, and sort of evaluating like what would work. And those can be in the $20,000 range. It really is like a proof of concept. Is this something? What are some of the challenges you'd have to then identify, and then what would be? And product could be, well, here's something that could be pursued, and here's what the engineering cost would be. Here's a rough estimate on construction. So, depending on what the board would want, you could first start with feasibility that then would be a proof of concept, be able to be done relatively quickly to then decide whether or not to progress to a more engineered solution.
I could go along with that.
That makes sense to me. I don't know protocol. I mean, is that something that, Mr. Westgate, if we task you with that, you come back and say the feasibility study is X amount of dollars, or how does it work?
I could, so I would ask our engineers to give me, I'd ask them to re-examine their proposal. And instead of considering the entire length of the street, I would tell them our idea about going up Victoria and to see if there was an opportunity to either make a connection from the cul-de-sac at the top of the road over to the parking lot, or to go through the cemetery property to get there, and ask them to put a scope of service and a fee schedule associated with that, and have that back to the board's consideration. And then if you approved it, then have to authorize the town manager to enter into a contract, and we could ask them to fast track it if you'd like, so that you can make this decision.
Well, I think in the long run, I think that makes the most sense.
It does, and I would support tasking Mr. Westgate to find out how much a feasibility study would cost to do such a plan.
They could probably turn that around once.
and
My comment would be, repairing Fisk Ave and having that project started and completed is a higher priority than getting a sidewalk on Maple Ave, right?
I would agree.
I'm telling you, that's my perspective, is that for me, that's a higher priority project.
Right.
For all the reasons I've shared previously ad nauseum, I'm not going to revisit them. I think that the ARPA monies should be used to fund the project on Maple Ave, and that position's not going to change. I defer to my fellow board members to make a motion.
Okay. I'd make a motion that the board move to authorize up to $1,073,898 for Fisk Ave water main replacement construction and $106,600 for construction administration services, both to be funded for town's ARPA allocation.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Majority. There were some others on the list for ARPA money, the police parking lot and the fire station parking lot.
Does it make sense to put that off again? I know people love it when we put it off, to put that off again and see if Mr. Westgate can get the cost of a feasibility study. I work with Victoria.
We have two.
Is the list in here? I know you're looking at it.
And there's, no, the full list is not,
Full list is-
just
I
on
printed
this
it,
ad.
Brett, if you wanna see it.
You have it? You mind?
No, just can't keep it because I can't keep those numbers.
No.
Good. But I'll share.
So with what we just approved, what else on here is not approved or remaining to be approved?
So, what I'll do is I can share that table on the screen. So
Okay,
great.
that would help.
That, yeah.
I mean, or I could just grab it from prior month's agenda, prior meeting's agenda. Because I think that was real, all those ones are kind of like small stuff. so
Yeah, I mean, if we
feel
do
like
small stuff, that's fine. I
The
mean-
only thing I really cared about was Maple Ave.
Right.
So
I was
everything else.
kind of hitting middle ground saying, geez, maybe we could do it all, but
It was 50 for parking
Do what?
lot, 53.
take and get the feasibility study, because I don't think it's going to be anywhere near as expensive as doing all of Maple Ave. But I don't know. We won't know. They might
This,
tell us we're nuts.
okay, so these are the ones that I'm gonna just make that as big as you can. Or,
Thank you.
or at least bigger.
That's it. So, still going.
So that's perfect. So the million we just did. Maple Ave sidewalk design and permitting, we're not doing. Right? I assume we're not gonna do that if we're not gonna
No.
do a sidewalk. We're not gonna do that.
Right.
So then there's 30,000 feasibility study. It's been added here. Okay. I mean, whatever. I'm indifferent on that one. Let's go water main design. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with all of them. Personally,
The first three we've already done.
yeah, sorry, when I say I'm fine, I think the only things that we're considering are everything below the Fisk Ave water main replacement, so below the million, right?
Right.
It's all those
Well, the
things.
106 is included in that motion.
So we start with
Oh,
asbestos cement water line replacement.
Was the 106 in that motion? I know it was referred to separately, but, okay. So then everything from the 140 asbestos down to I don't know what miscellaneous is, but,
So one of the things.
but the others
This
seem
list
fine.
is, this is above the ARPA allocation. So this is just a list. It doesn't total out to be the total. There are things such as the asbestos cement line replacement, 140 design, and oversight that Dennis and I have had conversations about pulling those because we're trying to wrap things into MassWorks. The parking lot, the miscellaneous, which is related to personnel, ends up being, whoops, I just got rid of it. Sorry.
I guess I would say that the paving ones, because I don't know what I don't know what the main hall sound improve, I don't know what that is, but and I don't know what the miscellaneous is. So I guess the milling and paving for the parking lots, I am definitely in support of if we have the money to do those.
What's the timeline on the replacement on the cement water lines?
So the two, Madam Chair, through the chair.
Yeah.
The two that are listed for 45,000 and 125. So that's two sections of AC pipe remaining on 140. One of them is associated with the section that we are looking to bring water and sewer up to Governor's Landing. And as the town manager indicated, we have included that in our MassWorks grant application. So we are looking to fund that entirely through. And the second piece runs from approximately from Millhouse Apartments to Mendon Street, right through the intersection of Hartford Ave North and Maple. And we are attempting to get the state to include that in their tip.
So we can essentially take those two off?
We're hopeful.
Okay.
So you've applied for the grant already.
We've applied for the MassWorks one. Yes. And we're in discussions with the state on, we brought it to their attention, the town manager brought it to their attention, and they didn't kick it off the table. They said, let's talk about it.
Okay.
How much is allocated again? Because I feel like we had the math in front of us at one point, and now I don't feel like we have the math.
So I'm just grabbing my calculator. So right now, what is remaining is 1,748,677 and change. Six.
But
So
that's okay.
take away the 1,007,398. Take away the 106,600. That gives us remaining of 568,179.
To,
I would say take the acoustic repairs off of town hall. That may be something that then we can fund with the some of the money that was appropriated under the cable PEG account. That added in basically around 50,000 to what we normally appropriate to try to do improvements for sound, for meeting qualities, to support using town hall for public meetings and to go out on cable access. So that may be that we can just sort of look at other things.
Is the parking, sorry if I may,
Yep.
is the parking lot milling and paving, is that both police and fire
Yes.
departments?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, so of everything remaining, those would be the ones that I would think we could, I would be comfortable motioning tonight.
would you be willing to take the 45,000 off now, Dennis? Okay, and leave the 125 until you find out?
No, I would remove that right now.
The 125 too? Okay.
But both of those are associated with the two sections of AC pipe, one that we've applied through MassWorks and one that we're trying to get the state to include in the tip. And this, keep in mind that the tip money that the state is using is federal funds. So they're on our side for this one. So Bush.
So then if my math is correctly, the three things that would be left would be the security camera upgrade, both parking lot, milling and paving. And if I can add, it comes up to 177,579.
So
like
on that list, that was subsequently updated.
Yeah.
So that's where you'll see that
Oh, so
like the
the
security
cameras has
cameras.
come off.
Yeah, that would come off because we have other sort of IT related needs that and I can go after grant funding for something like the security cameras.
Well, I'd be fine with the parking lot milling and paving.
Through the chair, just
Yeah.
for clarification.
Mm.
The 124, 463, that's the fire department. And the
Yes.
53, 116 is the police department.
Right.
So you combine those two.
Okay.
We motion
Can I-
to, oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, I can make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we allocate $53,116 and $124,463 to the milling and paving for the Upton Police and Fire Departments respectively from the ARPA funds.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we're gonna take the 125 off and the 45 off.
Yep.
Okay.
And then figure out what we want to do with the rest of them.
Right.
We did talk about first responders, COVID.
Yep, that's where miscellaneous starts to end up being, and so they're pulling together some information with Expire HR to then bring before the board at a future meeting for taking care of that.
Right.
What was it that we talked about? I didn't
First,
catch
it's
that.
a COVID stipend for first responders that
Oh,
work
yeah, yeah,
40 hours.
I got you. Yeah.
We talked,
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I got you.
So right now, there's still 390.
Okay, and you're gonna bring the details to us in another meeting.
Yep.
Okay. Works for me.
okay. Anything else?
For your hard work.
Just spent a lot of money.
Okay. Yeah, but you got a lot of work now.
Yeah.
You've only authorized a lot. You get to spend a lot.
Yes.
But you're ready to go, so
Yeah.
up to it. Tomorrow
Shovel
morning.
ready.
Making a phone call first thing in the morning.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Good.
Mr. Westgate.
I'm sure the residents of Fisk Ave will be thrilled, as they should be. They've been waiting for this for a long time.
Up here.
They are here.
Oh,
I'm more than ready, thank you.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Thank you for engaging and participating and being part of the process.
Could I ask Dennis a quick question?
Yes.
John Kearns, 18 Hazeltine Road. At the last meeting, you were talking about how the asbestos pipes had to be replaced in the town, the water pipes. So my question is, because there is one up on Fisk Ave, because those are asbestos pipes, is there a chance of us getting asbestos in our house water?
They're called asbestos containing material pipes. And it's actually the outside material of the pipe. That's asbestos. The inside core that carries the water is not.
Okay. Doesn't hurt me.
And now you feel much better.
Yes.
Yeah, just been taking a shower.
And I think part of the issue is part of the issue and the concern is, right, like if there's an incident where the pipe breaks or there's some sort of penetration through the pipe, that becomes a problem. As long as they're stable and in place, it's not a problem, but you want to avoid that, obviously, which is part of why the state and town is going through that process.
Okay.
I only know that because of our director.
8C, review and approval of intermunicipal agreement between Upton and Blackstone for the public health nurse services.
Okay, so, set for 2 years time of, year where, we have a IMA with the town of Blackstone to provide public health nurse services. As you can see in your packet from the track changes version, really nothing had changed except for the terms and some references as far as what we would bill Blackstone. Because we are undergoing a compensation classification study, I only identified for 1 year and then identified that we would then negotiate because we don't know what changes. would come about as a result in the second year. This was reviewed by Blackstone, and they had approved the draft. They're just waiting for their board of selectmen to execute it. And this also was provided to the Upton Board of Health, who did review and I believe recommended.
We did, yes.
Okay. Any questions?
I'm just looking at the numbers. So is this, we have this, is it, it's 50/50? Is that the,
Yes, but it also covers all of our actual costs. So it's dealing with benefits.
yeah, I just mean the time,
Oh.
between Blackstone and Upton.
Are they putting in?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were
The
talking
public
about
nurse, the hours.
yes. Yes, it is a 50/50 arrangement.
And is this person busy? Do we need them? I know a lot of towns don't have town nurses. I know there was a lot of agreement that it was fantastic and beneficial to have a town nurse during COVID.
Yeah.
So there's no denying that. But that's just a question.
So one of the main things I think is that COVID also identified that there's a lot of other things that we can be doing for outreach and that the public health nurse does. And I do know that the public health nurse is also engaged when we're dealing with very sensitive cases that come to our Elder and Social Services Department as well. So what I'm told as far as the conversations with board staff is that she is very busy. Love to be able to have more time. This is a shared position. It is very valued by Blackstone as well. And I don't see where there is anything but a demonstrated need in full towns for this service.
Motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to execute the municipal agreement between Upton and Blackstone for public health nurse services for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024.
Second motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
8D, approval of the FY 2024 retrofit town and public safety IT contracts.
Okay, so with this contract, it basically is a continuation of services from last year. Last year is when we separated out retrofit being providing all of our IT services to more of a shared services model with Mendon Upton Regional School District. So there is one thing that the technology committee hasn't had a chance to review that. They're going to be doing so tomorrow. That's why the motion is drafted in a way saying, with favorable recommendation from the technology committee that I can finalize and execute the contract. Just to point out, and I had that within the board's packet in case anyone was curious as far as the increases. The cost to the town increased by $2,000 for the town's portion of the contract and by $960 for the public safety amount of contract. So you're talking about 4%, and then basically do the math quickly in the head, about a 5% increase for the public safety side. This is one of the things that last year we were faced with a significant increase in costs. Looking into FY23 where it was going up, I believe, as Steve can correct me, I think it was like a 25% increase in the services, which is what kicked us to really looking to find a more cost-effective model for the daily day-to-day work that then we entered into with Mendon.
Questions? No?
Works for me. Thank you.
Motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town manager to finalize and execute the contract with Retrofit for network monitoring and IT service for the town and for public safety in the amount of $51,000 $955.20 and $12,960 respectively for the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, pending the Technology Committee's favorable recommendation.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
8E, approval of community planning grant contract.
Okay, so this is, at the last meeting, I mentioned that our Director of Land Use and Inspection Services had submitted a flurry of grant applications. This is the first one to land $30,000 technical assistance to assist developing zoning bylaws to address inclusionary zoning, develop an inclusionary zoning bylaw, as well as then bylaws for complying with MBTA communities. So it is over 25,000, so therefore that's why it's on board for approval to execute that.
Questions? No questions.
Sounds good to me.
Motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town manager to execute the contract with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts with the community planning grant in the amount of $30,000.
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
8F, liaison assignments. There's a list.
Included last year's list, which was the same as the prior year's list. So having a new member, we sort of changed that up a little bit.
Did.
At least we have to change the name in the columns.
Okay.
I'm, whatever you guys think. I am interested in the planning board and the ZBA. Everything else I'm neutral on, but fair games. Obviously.
Huh?
Obviously. Logistically, can I do the Board of Health? I know when I was at the Board of Health, they brought issues up and said, hey, throw your selectman's hat on. If it makes it easier, that's pretty simple. That's a no-brainer. Joe, is it kosher?
So one of the things that, I think to be sort of thinking about this in detail, it probably would be best not to, only because then there's introducing a third role into it, as far as if you take a Board of Health action, it doesn't impact Board of Selectmen, okay, you can do both. You know, it's when things sort of cross those lines and say, you know, something that requires action by both. By doing the liaison, it sort of blurs that, and it just may be cleaner just to sort of give it to another member.
I know when I spoke to ethics before I ran for both, before I accepted both positions, ethics said, as long as I wasn't voting money specifically for the Board of Health, and on the clarification, say if, the town nurse or the dog officer or somebody that's under the Board of Health, I don't know if it was just for the Board of Health stipends, I need clarification, or just, I think it was that,
Yeah.
but I want to confirm it
But the,
before I stick my foot in it.
Totally, of
So,
course. But the liaison's not like it's a voting position. You don't have a vote, so like.
I mean, technically, was I the liaison tonight when you said, what did the Board of Health say?
Right. And I can tell you, if I'm the liaison, and you're on the Board of Health, I'm not going. Sorry. I got enough stuff going on. Like, I don't need to go and sit next to you. And then Board of Health.
Joe, is this something we should ask ethics
I
people?
was just gonna say that.
Is it tragic if we just kind of postpone it and we postpone the whole kit and caboodle?
I mean,
Ask
why-
ethics,
why
make
have
sure that
two
nobody comes after me?
Why have two members track one committee?
It's-
Run it by ethics. If all of a sudden they say, you know what? Yeah, and they may they're gonna want to know, how does this work? And if you're basically saying, well, providing the board of selectmen with updates on initiatives so that they are aware of general things, if they say fine, then fine. If they then had an issue, that maybe then what to bring back for.
My experience on most of these, that it's like a liaison. So if any of these boards or committees sort of need something or need a heads up from the board or want an opinion from the board, then the liaison brings it to the board and says, hey, this is what's going on in this group and what they need.
Now, let me ask you, since I'm new, do you guys attend all of these meetings? No,
No.
so just if there's an issue, they come to you and say, hey, we're gonna come before the board of selectmen, and we have a question, or,
I don't know what the spirit of it was when when the liaisons were created,
right?
but just from a capacity perspective, that's how I handle it. This is a reactive position for me. If I was planning board and ZBA, I probably would be more engaged because I'm very interested in those things. I used to be on the planning board, ZBA in Northbridge, so I love that stuff.
Okay.
But I don't otherwise engage proactively in any of these.
And
I'm,
some towns that have this structure, it may be just every once in a while you're touching base with the chair. Hey, what are some of the hot button issues? You know, it's, I've never seen liaisons from board of selectmen to be anything but sort of as a point of contact to sort of provide updates and communication, you know, both ways. And it can be from board down, it can be planning board up.
Maybe we don't.
I'm already on the
Yeah,
Affordable
maybe
Housing Trust,
Right.
so
It's
we
just
don't
a
need a
thing.
liaison.
Right, if it's just a thing on a piece of paper, like, what are we doing? If it's not like they don't know where to find us. If,
oh,
Like,
let me
I-
just tell you, I think everyone knows where to find us, because my phone's been ringing.
yeah. Yeah.
Instagram,
I get
you know,
more
the
calls
whole
and text
thing.
messages and, right.
It's been pretty amazing.
Fun.
But then
isn't it?
again, I did send my phone number out.
Welcome to the club.
You're welcome. No, I really, yeah, so I don't know if we need, Joe, do we need specific? Is there something that requires us to have specific liaison appointments, or?
This is just.
Because I think
Another board.
I was just saying, I feel like this is just a legacy thing that, right, it was a thing and it,
before we had a town manager, right?
No,
No?
I'm gonna say probably about 8 or 9 years ago, they did this liaison, to engage with different boards.
right, to meet some need, but
Would anybody have a problem if I was the liaison to the Board of Assessors and the Finance Committee, Capital Budget?
I mean, I think, so definitely not.
No.
I think that, right, like, we're all, but like, it's not a role, right? It's like,
No.
you're free to go and do whatever you want to do with any of these boards and committees, right? I mean, right? Like, what are we really saying by saying, yeah, you can be the liaison, or you can, if you can't, you still can do everything you would do otherwise. So,
Okay.
whatever, I'm fine either way.
Okay. So Affordable Housing Trust, Board of Assessors, Capital Budget and FinCom.
Yeah.
Brett, would you like to swap? Because that leaves, under you, it's Board of Health, Library Trustees, Recreation, but you want Planning and ZBA.
I would.
So
love that.
if we
Just flip.
swap the names,
That's okay with you, that's okay with me.
works for me. Seeing that nice and easy,
Just
keeps
check
it
it out.
easy for
But
Sandy.
Except the Affordable Housing Trust, right?
Right, but Maureen already said she's good that.
Yes.
I don't know how I got appointed to that, but I.
Me neither, congratulations.
Gee, thanks.
To the affordable, oh,
I,
you're welcome.
yeah, thanks.
But is that the same thing then, that we have to,
I'm
because she's,
interested in that too, though.
right, if you're a member of the Affordable Housing Trust, can you be the liaison? It's the same thing as
Same thing as
the
Board
Board
of
of
Health.
Health.
I like you to just start because.
I'm just, no, well.
But I'm also
saying,
on the board.
Oh, elected versus,
Yeah,
yeah.
appointed.
Okay. fair.
It's only gonna be an issue for a year. I took the year term unless, you know.
All right,
Might like it.
so do you want me to give this a try?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, go
All
for
right,
it.
here we go. I make a motion. Do we motion these? Is that what we're doing? Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. As a liaison. All right. I'm going to make a motion that Chair Maureen Dwinell be the liaison to the Board of Assessor, Capital Budget, Finance Committee, MURSD, and Affordable Housing Trust. And Laura Hebb be the liaison to the Board of Health, pending the approval from state ethics, the library trustees, and the recreation commission. And I will be the liaison for BBT, planning board, and ZBA.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
We did it. That was good.
Did it.
Thanks for it.
And, oh,
Sometimes it's the small wins.
please sit in the chair. You don't realize how complicated it is.
8G, fall special town meeting schedule.
Isn't it great that we're already planning for fall?
You have to.
Let's do it.
On the very first day of summer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically I already reviewed this schedule with town clerk, finance director, and assessors. One of the main things is that this is like the latest in November it really can be, because it's supposed to be the first Tuesday. The previous Tuesday to November 7th is Halloween, so and everyone especially Halloween plus, it doesn't fall practice. So it would result in us meeting 2 weeks in a row, November 7th, and then having a regular meeting the following Tuesday, because we are running into then having the tax classification hearing, which I've already communicated with the assessors. They're fine for November 14th date for that hearing.
Was it a revale this year or last year?
Last year. Yeah, that was when every surprises.
Everybody had a wonderful January surprise when they opened their mail.
So what that would involve is at the July 25th meeting, taking a vote to open the warrant on August 7th. I know.
I just say it.
So
Looks good to me.
There's no
Yeah.
motion. Basically, it's like this is what it works.
It's,
It's just updating the calendar.
There it is.
It's just the new year.
did you want to talk about the calendar for, what date were we changing?
So we would have been scheduled for July 11th, but you're not going to be available, and this was the whole trying to squeeze in tonight, and I want to be able to sort of nail down, so we can make sure.
I could do it that Wednesday.
So
It's just,
we doing it that 12th then?
That would be an option, because right now I'm not, and I've been asking for people to keep updated, watching their budgets. Right now, we don't have any need for any additional year transfers. I'd at least like to have a we took a bunch really early.
Yeah.
So but I wouldn't want to then sort of like skip that meeting altogether. And if we can do it the 12th, as opposed to kicking it to the following week, that would prevent us from having like an emergency meeting or something.
Need a safety.
Yeah.
I'm good with the 12th.
I am 100% good with the 12th,
So we do it
With-
then.
with a comment.
Uh-huh.
When I first got on the board 6 years ago, our meetings, one of the big complaints I heard was that the Board of Selectmen meetings, nobody knew when they were. They were always at different times, different days. They weren't posted on the website, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, you could have figured it out if you wanted to. We've gotten a lot better. We're very consistent. We're always on sort of the first and third Tuesday. They're always on Tuesday. They're always at 7. That's gotten a lot better and a lot more consistent. So I would only say that it's worth being mindful to stick to the schedule as much as we can. But obviously, we can't always, and I think it's fine. And I also think that we're now doing a much better job of posting the dates on the website. So it's much more visible than it was when I started 6 years ago. So even if we do have to move the dates, it's much more apparent to people than it was, 6 years ago. So
Right.
to say that.
that's fine. And then too,
Well,
we're,
good show tonight, seeing that it was moved.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I think too, if we
Yeah.
can kind of stick to, if we do move it, we just move it that one
One
day
day.
to the Wednesday.
Yeah.
Everyone will be looking on Tuesday.
Oh, it's not there. when
I got a couple
it's
of
the
calls
next day.
today. Are you meeting both Tuesday and Wednesday? I'm like, no, we're moving,
Yeah,
taking Tuesday and moving it to Wednesday.
Yeah.
So people are watching.
yeah.
But I
Love
think if you're right, Brett, if we stay consistent that
Yeah.
if it's not that Tuesday, look for us on
that
Wednesday.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
That's great.
All right.
Yeah, works for me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Then I can pick my child up at the airport.
Nothing more important than that.
Yeah,
I-
he's in Japan. He'll be on his way home.
Ah,
Cool.
Part of Japan.
At the moment, he's in Osaka. He's going
How
to
long was he there for?
couple of weeks. His girlfriend is Japanese and she
Yeah.
is a native speaker. So he is in Japan with a native
Oh, that's
speaker. He called me today and he said he wants to move there. I was like, let's
Yeah.
come home and finish college.
Exactly.
But yeah, he's having the time of his life.
Good for him.
Yeah. And he said the exchange rate is amazing because I don't know if you know, my son is 6'8". So to put the amount of food into him that is necessary to keep him going on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And he is,
Oh, he's gonna be
he
famous.
says, Mom, he goes, I just bought, like, he listed his food and I was like, how much was that? He goes, $10. I'm like, wow.
All
I
right.
bet.
Maybe you will be moving to
Maybe,
Japan.
yeah. For those-
Might be better.
Yeah, well, you could be finding that out in a few years when your boy becomes a teenager, they're bottomless.
Oh, two of them are.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, minutes. Did anybody have a chance to read the minutes?
Done.
Pass.
I was saying, Sam.
I was gonna
Didn't get a chance.
ask for where they were, but I
Oh.
figured,
All right. I make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Nice work.
Good job.
Thanks for coming and
Thank you,
staying.
Dennis. There's a lot of work.